Hello friends, welcome to Misty Moon Designs. My name's Louisa. Are you ready for something different? Today we're going to be making a multi-strand bracelet and we're going to be using the beads that came in the latest GGC Treasure Bag. Now if you don't have those beads, that's okay too. You can still make this project because I'll be listing all the materials down below in the description section of this video. And in case you're not familiar with the GGC Treasure Bags, I'll leave a direct link to the website so you can go check it out. As you can see, this stunning multi-strand bracelet blends the art of macrame knotting with classic bead stringing, all brought together with a sleek ribbon crimp clasp. We'll be using nylon cord and glass beads to create layers of color, movement, and style. Whether you're brand new to jewelry making or looking to expand your skills, this project is a great way to explore different techniques in one cohesive, beautiful piece. So grab your favorite cords, beads, and tools, and let's get creative. In today's project, we'll be using the beads that came in the latest GGC Treasure Bag, and I did do an unpacking video. If you haven't seen it, I'll link it down below. And for those of you who are not familiar with the GGC Treasure Bag, it's a limited edition, it's not a subscription, and it usually comes packed with tons of strands, loose beads, and components. So let me show you the materials we'll be using for today's bracelet. Here are the beads we're going to be using for today's project. I'm going to go over the sizes with you real quick, but like I said earlier, I'll leave a list of all the materials down below in the description section of this video. And don't forget that I leave timestamps as well, so if you want to skip forward to any portion of this video, you can certainly do so. These are called rice beads and they're faceted. They measure 6 by 4 millimeters, and the color is half rainbow cyan, and they're electroplated. And these beads are Aventurine rounds. They measure 6 millimeters across. I also have this little dolphin bead in the same tray. It measures 16 by 10 by 5 millimeters, and I'm going to be creating a charm with it. And here we have some tiny rondelle beads. They measure 3 by 2.5 millimeters, and these are listed as oval gold frame beads. They measure 4.5 by 7 millimeters, and the color is mint, and they're also electroplated. Let me show you what else we'll be using today. We're going to be using 0.8 millimeter nylon cord, also known as Chinese knotting cord, in 2 colors, blue and green. I don't know the exact names of these colors because they come in packs of 6 colors, and they didn't list the colors, unfortunately, but any kind of muted blue like this one and a medium green would be fine. It's the closest green I could find that would match these right here. And this one goes with some of the other beads. You'll see in just a few moments. I mean, it doesn't have to be exact, guys. It really doesn't. It's okay if your cord isn't exactly the same, as long as it's in the vicinity of the color of your beads. Now today I'm going to show you a different setup for macrame. Usually what I do is tape my cord to the table, but today I'm going to show you a different way to secure your cord. Now in addition to all these materials, I'm going to be using some ribbon crimps. They're also known as ribbon crimp clamps. That's a bit of a tongue twister, but anyway, these measure 20 millimeters in length, and they have teeth, as you can see, which will bite down into the cord. And you really don't need glue, but I am going to apply some glue. And of course we'll be needing some jump rings and a lobster clasp, but I'll bring those out later on. And if you missed out on the unpacking video, you would have missed out on the mini tutorial that I did at the end, where I made this beautiful stretch bracelet, which is actually going to coordinate with today's bracelet because I'm going to be using similar beads. So let me go ahead and clear my table and we'll get started. So here's my setup. I'm going to be using a jewelry storage tray. It's velvet lined. Of course, if you have a macrame board or a clipboard, you can certainly use that, or just tape your work down to your table using some Scotch tape. Let me just show you what it looks like. It's just a rectangular box, as you can see. I like it because it's velvet lined, so I can put my beads in the tray while I'm working. I'm not going to do that today though, because my camera sometimes has trouble focusing if there's a lot of stuff below. So now I'm going to attach the cord to my tray. I'm going to use the blue colored cord, and I recommend that you cut yourself 2 pieces and give yourself a generous amount. Don't be too precise when you cut it. You're going to cut one short piece measuring 20 inches and then a longer one measuring about 55 inches or so, just to make sure you have enough, especially if you're new. It's better to work with more than with less. So here's my 20-inch piece. I'm going to go ahead and attach it at the top. And now I'm going to attach the bottom. So there's the bottom. And here I have my long piece. I'm going to find the center. So I'm going to bring my ends together. And here's my center, and I'm going to actually put a little mark there. Let me put down a piece of paper to protect my surface. I'm going to use a Sharpie. And I'm simply going to mark the middle, just like this. Now, normally you wouldn't want to do that if you're doing some other project where it shows, but since my cord is going to be hidden inside this ribbon crimp, I'm not too concerned. It's just a little tip, especially if you're new, because I can't tell you the amount of times I've tied my long piece onto the main cord and I'm off center. So now I'm going to slide it underneath the main cord. Let me find the center. There it is. I'm going to create a loop on the left. I'm going to take the right end, go underneath the main cord and the loop, and then pull it through the loop. Let me make sure that center stays where it is. It doesn't have to be precise, but you do want it centered. So there it is. There's my first knot. And like I said, that's going to be covered up, so I'm not too concerned about it. And now I'm going to slide my knot up. Let me bring the tray down. Now this is actually called a half knot or a half square knot. A full square knot is actually 2 half knots tied in opposite directions. So now I'm going to tie my next one on the right side. So I'm making a loop. Take the left end, go underneath, pull it through, and pull. You pull both ends. So that's a full square knot. There's a little bit of confusion about it, and I think I've even contributed to that in past videos, but a full square knot is actually 2 half knots together like this. Now for me, I prefer to count the half knots instead of the full square knots. It's much easier for me to keep track of them, but it's up to you how you want to do it. I'm going to count my half knots. So I've got 2. Now I'm going to do my third one on the left. I'm taking the right end, going underneath the main cord, and pulling it through the loop. So that's 3. Take the right end, make a loop, take the left end, go underneath, pull it through. So that's 4 half knots. Take the left, make a loop, take the right, go underneath, pull it through the loop. That's 5, and I'm going to take the right, make a loop, take the left, go underneath, and pull it through the loop. So that's 6 half knots or 3 full square knots. And I need 5 square knots. So once again, I'm going to take the left, make a loop, take the right, go underneath, pull. That's 7. Take the right, make a loop, take the left, go underneath, and pull. That's 8 half knots or 4 square knots. I hope I'm not confusing you. And now I'm going to do one more set. So I'm going to take the left, make a loop, take the right, go underneath, grab the cord, pull it through the loop, take the right, drape it on top, take the left, go underneath, grab it, and pull it through the loop. So now I have 10 half knots or 5 full square knots. And that's the beginning of the bracelet. So now I'm going to load some beads onto my main cord. Let me move my tray up. I'm going to use these. These are the tiny rondelles. And these are the rice beads. Let me unclip the bottom end. I need to make that end pointy. And I'm going to use a lighter to melt it. I'm going to use this lighter. This is actually an electric flameless lighter. It creates a plasma arc at this end. I don't like using flame lighters because I just don't like getting that close to a flame. I'm also going to use protection. I'm going to use these finger protectors. These are hot glue finger protectors. Such a baby, right? Let me go ahead and melt the end. should be good enough. It makes the end a little bit stiffer. Now I must warn you, some of the holes on these beads are irregular. Some are very narrow and some are not. I'm going to start with a rice bead, and I'm just going to feed my cord through the bead. Hopefully it'll go through. There it goes. And if it doesn't go through, don't struggle with it. Just find a different bead. And now 2 of these. There it goes. That one was challenging. Let me do another one. That one's definitely not going in. So let me grab another one. And sometimes you may need your pliers to help you get that cord through. So let me keep loading my beads. Okay, as you can see, I've got my beads on, and I had to use my pliers pretty much with all the green ones because, like I said, the holes are pretty small. But anyway, at least I got them on, so now I'm going to tie my bottom end, or clip it, I should say. And let me move my tray down so you can see better. So now we're going to secure these beads. I'm going to slide this one up. I'm going to take my left cord, drape it over the top like this, take the right cord, go underneath, grab it, and pull it through the loop. And pull both ends. So now the bead is on, as you can see, and that's counted as a half square knot. So we have to finish it off by doing this side. So I'm going to make a loop, take the left cord, go underneath, grab it, pull it through, and pull. So now we have a full square knot, and we're going to do a total of 4 square knots. And like I said, I like to count my half knots, so that'll be a total of 8 half knots. So I have 2, this is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So now we have 8 half knots or 4 full square knots. So now I'm going to slide the next beads, which are these 2 rondelles, and I'm going to do the same exact thing. Try to go a little bit slower this time. I'm taking the left cord, draping it over the top of the main cord, take the right cord, go underneath, grab it like this, and pull it through the loop. Pull both ends to tighten it up. Sometimes you may have to move that cord around a little bit like this to make sure your beads are centered. So that's half a square knot. I'm taking the right end, making a loop, taking the left end, going underneath, pulling it through the loop, and pull both ends. So that's 1 full square knot or 2 half knots. So once again, I'm taking the left, draping it over, taking the right, going underneath, pulling it through. That's 3 half knots. Taking the right, draping it over, taking the left, going underneath, pulling it through the loop. That's 4 half knots. Five, 6, 7, 8. 8 half knots or 4 full square knots. And that's all there is to it. I'm going to keep doing this until I use up all of these beads, and then when I get done, I'll show you how to finish the ends. So let me keep going. Before I go any further, I do want to show you something. Sometimes when you're doing this kind of work, you may get distracted and you may forget which side to start from. That can happen very easily, guys. I recommend that you stay focused when you're doing this kind of work, but if you do happen to lose your place, it's very easy to figure out which side you need to start from. Let me just move this tray up. I'll see if I can zoom in so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm not sure if you guys can see that little loop right there. It's going over this cord on the left. It's this loop right here that I'm pointing to. It looks like a little hump. That signifies the start of the next knot. So my next knot's going to start on this side, on the left side. Wherever you see that little bump, whether it's on the left or the right, that's where you need to start. And also you need to keep track of which side you start from. For example, at the beginning of my bracelet, I started on the left. So I definitely want to end with a knot on the right by the time I get done with the whole bracelet in order to have full square knots. So obviously in looking at this, I have completed 2 full square knots. So I need to do another 2, and I'm going to start on the left side. So let me keep going. Okay, all my beads are on, and I just need to finish off the knots at this end. I've already created half a knot there to secure these beads. I need a total of 10 half knots or 5 square knots, just like I did at the beginning. So let me finish this one off. That's 1 full square knot. And I'm going to count half knots again because that's what I prefer. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So now I'm going to trim my ends and melt them. Let me just unclip this end and the other end. I'm going to trim that end first, and I'm leaving about, I would say, 2 millimeters, something like that. Let me do this end. And now this one. So this end is done, and now I need to trim this one off. So there's 1 strand completed. Let me go ahead and measure it. It measures about, I would say 5 3/4, something like that. Of course, when you go to do yours, it may be different depending on how much tension you use or how tight the knots are. Everybody's different and it does take practice. And keep in mind that the ribbon crimp, jump rings and clasp are going to add to the overall length. I'm also going to be attaching an extended chain. It's a good idea to do that, especially if you're giving it away as a gift. So now let's move on to the second strand. Let me get the materials for that. As you can see, I've already attached my cord, and I actually have 20 half knots or 10 full square knots. And I attached the cord to my tray the same way I attached the first strand. This time I'm using the green cord. And I've already slid my beads on. I have the 6mm Aventurine beads, and these were actually very easy to slide on because the holes were pretty big. So now that I have 10 full square knots, I'm going to go ahead and slide one of these beads up. Let me move my tray down. I'm going to take the left end, make a loop, take the right end, go underneath, grab it and pull it through the loop. And once again, take the right end, make a loop, take the left end, go underneath, and pull it through the loop. So that's one full square knot. And like I said, you do need to adjust the cord around that bead to make sure it sits properly. And I'm going to do the same amount of knots in between the beads that I did in this strand, 4 full square knots or 8 half knots. So that's 2 half knots. Three, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 8 half knots or 4 full square knots. And now I'm going to slide the next bead up. Now if you clicked on the timestamps and you missed out on seeing me do this one, I encourage you to go back because I went pretty slow showing you the square knots. And I know I went a little bit quick just now. So let me keep going until I use up these 6 beads. I'm going to do it off camera to save time. And since I've already shown you how to finish off the ends, I'll go ahead and trim them and melt them. And then when I come back, we'll measure it. So I'll see you in a few moments. Okay, I've completed my second strand with the Aventurine beads, and it's slightly shorter than the previous one, about 1/8 of an inch, but I'm not too concerned because, like I said before, there's plenty of room inside this ribbon crimp. So now before I move on to the next couple of strands, I do want to apply some glue on the ends, just to be on the safe side. I'm going to use this one. This is Loctite Super Glue. Let me protect my surface. And you don't want to apply too much, just a little dab on the ends. So now while these are drying, let me get the materials for the next couple of strands. Here are the beads for the next couple of strands, and I'm not going to do macrame, I'm just going to string them onto a single piece of cord. Now these are called magic rods. I carry them in my Etsy store. I use these quite often whenever I'm trying to figure out how many beads I need for a bracelet. They come in handy for seed beads because I'm able to load them onto the rod, and then I use these stoppers to slide everything together, which is something you can't really do on a beading board or a bead board. The other nice thing about them is that I can make adjustments at each end. For example, if I'm trying to get a length the same as this one and I have too many beads on the ends, I can remove them by sliding off the stoppers, because you definitely don't want to spend an enormous amount of time loading beads on some cord and then find out that you have to redo it or remove some beads or add beads. So these come in handy for that. Of course, you can use them for other beads as well. You can use them for chips, nuggets, irregular shaped beads. They're made out of steel, and they hold their shape, as you can see, but they are pretty thin, so they fit through seed beads very easily. Now, some of my customers have complained that the beads slide off, and that can happen if your beads are too heavy. So what I recommend that you do is to use 2 or 3 stoppers at each end whenever you're working with heavy beads. Another thing, these stoppers are very tiny, so if you have joint problems, you may have some difficulty. I'm just letting you know ahead of time in case you're thinking about buying these. I will leave a link to my Etsy store down below in the description section of this video if you're interested. And by the way, they measure 12 inches in length. So let me show you what I did with this one. I started with 4 seed beads at the end, and then 3 of the oval beads, the oval frame beads, another seed bead, 3 of the rondelles, seed bead, 3 ovals, seed bead, 3 rondelles, seed bead, and so on and so forth. And this measures about 5 1/4 inches. You want it shorter than the other strands because what I'm going to do is make 2 strands and tie them together with a knot. So you need to accommodate for the knot. By the time we do the knots at each end, it should measure the same as the other strands, these 2. And by the way, I don't think I mentioned how I came up with the number of knots. All I can tell you guys is that it's trial and error. What I did is I created this one first, and then when I went to do the second one, I did a series of knots, and once it was complete, I held this strand up against the other one to see whether or not I had the exact same length. And I think the first one I made, I realized I needed some extra knots, so I added them at the ends. And that's how I came up with it. Basically, I had to redo it. If you want your strands to be the same, unfortunately, you're going to have to go through that step. I know it's a pain, but in the end, it's worth it. So anyway, these are size 8/0 seed beads, and they're in a silver color, as you can see. It's kind of like a dark silver. And these are the faceted rice beads, the same ones that I used on the first strand. And now I'm going to go through some trial and error again to figure out how many seed beads to add so that the length measures that one. So let me go ahead and remove the stopper on this end. I'm going to start by loading 7, I think, 7 seed beads. And a rice bead, and another 7, and another rice bead, so that's what we have so far, and I'm going to keep repeating the same pattern. Okay, I've slid on my beads, and as you can see, they're not equal, so now I have to make them equal. I have to figure out how many seed beads to remove, and this is going to be kind of tricky because it looks like I need to remove 2 from this end, but 3 from that end. And if it's off by 1 seed bead, it's no big deal. It really isn't. You're not going to notice it. So I'm going to remove 3 from this end. Let me put my stopper back on so I don't lose the beads. And 2 from this end. Let me bring my beads in close. Let's take a look. Well, I guess I was wrong. Look at that. I don't know what happened just now, but I need an extra one at this end. I guess I'm just tired. Or maybe I didn't have the beads up close to each other. That could have happened too. There we go. Let's take a look. That's pretty close. It's as close as it's going to get. So now I'm going to cut myself a 16-inch piece of cord. Here it is. I'm going to attach a clip at this end. And I'm going to offload from the rods directly onto the cord. So I'm going to remove the stopper carefully, and I'm simply going to slide the beads off the rod and onto my cord. And I'm able to do 2 at a time. I can probably do 3 as well. Let's see. There we go. So I'm going to keep going until I load this rod, and then I'll get a second piece of cord and load that rod. Okay, all my beads are strung on, and I will admit it was really difficult getting the 0.8mm through those oval beads as well. So you might want to think about using 0.6mm cord instead. I mean, I was able to do it, but it was challenging. I ended up using these tweezers. These actually worked really well because I was able to grab the cord right at the very tip as it came out of that hole and pull it through. So now we're going to move on to the next step. Let me remove the clips from this end. I do have clips on these two ends. I'm going to leave them there for the time being. And I'm simply going to do an overhand knot. Nothing special. Just like that. Let me remove these two clips now. Slide my beads down, like so. Make sure there are no spaces. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make a loop, pull my cord through, slide my beads down a little bit more, make sure they're nice and snug up against each other. Not too tight though, you don't want it too stiff. And now using the tweezers, I'm going to reach in here through the loop and I'm going to grab the two cords right at the top of the beads. Like this. And pull. And you do want a little bit of space because the ribbon crimp needs to go there. You don't want it to crush your beads. And that's all there is to it. Pretty easy. So now it should measure about the same as this one. And it looks like it does. And to finish off these ends, I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the other two strands. I'm going to trim them and melt them down. Let me do one at a time. So this one's done. Let me do the same thing with this end. And I don't know how this knot happened, but look at that. It's weird. I certainly didn't do that on purpose. So that part's done, and now comes the most difficult part, guys. I'm not going to lie. And the reason it's difficult is because these ribbon clamps or crimps are very, very tough. They're tough to close or to fold over. I think I'm going to place this one on this side and this one on the other side, but it really doesn't matter. You can do it whichever way you want to do it. I am going to want to use some of this glue. Actually, let me go ahead and apply it on this strand. I forgot to do it. I don't think it'll come apart, but it's just better to do it. It's safer. And again, you don't want too much. So I'm going to let this dry for a few minutes and then we'll come back and assemble the rest of the bracelet. Okay, I'm ready to attach my ribbon crimps. I'm going to use the Loctite super glue again, this one right here. And as you can see, it's the Ultra Gel Control. I'm not sure what that means other than it's gel based, but I do know that it dries quickly, which is what you want. Let me just move this one out of the way for the time being. And I'm going to apply a little bit of glue inside that ribbon crimp. Let me just grab it with my pliers to make it easy. You don't want to apply too much, because if you apply too much, then you may end up with some overflow. Spread it out. I think that's good enough. I'm not sure if you guys can see the glue in there. Hopefully you can. And I really should have put some protection down so I don't get any glue on my surface. I'm going to start with this one right here. And I'm going to take it and place it in the middle. And now this one. It is a little tricky, guys. I'm not going to lie. And you do want to make sure that those seed beads are out of the way. You definitely don't want to crush a seed bead. And now this one. Make sure it's pushed all the way in. It doesn't want to stay in there for some reason, so I'm going to hold it just for a few seconds. Actually, let me place this bead tray in there. And give it about a minute. Okay, it's been about a minute. So now I'm going to carefully pick it up, like so. It's not completely dry yet, but it's dry enough for this step. So now I'm just going to go ahead and close my ribbon crimp the best way I can, making sure that I don't crush my seed beads. And I think there is one in the way there. So let me just move things around a little bit, because I definitely don't want that to happen. And now I'm going to do this end, or this side. Make sure it's nice and closed and that it's biting down into all three strands. I usually do it a couple of times. I don't really have a lot of hand strength, so for me it's quite challenging. Let me use both hands. And that's not going to go anywhere. So there you go. Now I've attached these three ends, and now I have to do the other three ends. And I'm going to do it the exact same way. And since we've already spent so much time with this tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and do it off camera so the video isn't too long, and I'll be right back. Okay, I've attached all the strands. It's not perfect, but I think it looks okay. And I bet you can't tell that I'm missing a seed bead on this one and this one, just at this end. And that's because when I was crimping it down, I accidentally crushed a seed bead, which is unfortunate. So then I went ahead and slid the other one inside to make sure both of these strands are the same length. These things happen, guys. What can I say? But if it does, don't panic, because in the end, you're not really going to notice it. I bet you probably wouldn't have known had I not mentioned it. Or maybe some of you might have noticed, because I know I have some viewers that are very attentive and detail-oriented. But anyway, here it is, and I think it looks really nice. I hope you like it as well. Of course, we have to attach a clasp and an extended chain, and that's what we're going to do next. And I am going to attach a little charm to the center of this strand here, but let me go ahead and do the clasp first. Here's a lobster clasp. Here's an extended chain. I do want to embellish it. I'm going to use one of the faceted rice beads. And by the way, this is a ball head pin, but you can use a flat head pin if you want to. I'm going to grab it with my round nose pliers, like this, bend it, reposition my pliers, wrap the tail around the nose of the pliers, flip my pliers around, continue wrapping to the back. Let me open up this loop, slide my chain into it, like so. Let me grab the loop with these pliers. Grab the tail and do a couple of wraps. I'm going to cut off the excess using my flush cutters. And let me tuck in that end. So now my extended chain is embellished. And I actually don't want it this long. I don't like long extended chains. So let me see if I can remove a couple of links. And these are not soldered, so I can just open them up like this. Here's a 5mm jump ring, and here's another one for this end. Let me open it up. These are actually very thick, which means they're going to be strong. I can always tell when I'm trying to close them, if I'm struggling, that they're strong. You do want to make sure they're closed very well. I like to flatten where the cut is. And now let me open up this one. Slide my extended chain into it. And slide this end into it as well. So that part's done. Here's my little dolphin charm. And I have a 6mm jump ring and a 4mm jump ring. Actually, this might be 6.5. It's pretty big. I'm going to slide this strand into it, the blue one, like that. Close it up. And now I'm going to open up this one. Actually, you know what? I just realized I need to use another ball head pin. So let me do that. I forgot about that. It's actually a bead. It's not a charm. So I may not need this after all. Boy, today's been a comedy of errors, hasn't it? I've made all kinds of mistakes. Oh well. So there it is on my ball head pin. I'm going to grab the pin at the top of the bead, like this, bend it, reposition my pliers, wrap the tail around the nose of the pliers, flip the pliers around, wrap to the back, and I'm going to open up this loop, slide it into the jump ring, like this, grab the loop, grab the tail and do a couple of wraps. I don't know where my green skinny pliers are, but I do miss them when I'm doing wraps like this. I think they're in my other studio. I have another studio downstairs in my basement. Let me snip off the excess. Tuck in the little end to make sure there's nothing sharp sticking out. And that's it. Isn't this bracelet cute? I really like it. I think it's adorable. Let me put it on. I'm just going to drape it over my wrist because I have a hard time doing up lobster clasps. There it is. Isn't it cute? And there's this side. It's a nice fit. It even stands up by itself, almost like a cuff bracelet. So anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. I hope I've given you some ideas and some tips, and I hope you can make your own bracelet. And by the way, it matches perfectly with this bracelet that I made a couple of weeks ago. If you haven't seen that tutorial, I'll list it down below. But obviously, since I use the same beads, of course it's going to match. As always, I'm going to put it on so you can see what it looks like from a distance. Thank you so much for watching. I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.